there, spooky pretties, and welcome to Scary Movie Sunday with me, your host, Maggie. Today I'm going to be talking about a horror movie that's currently streaming on Shudder. If you guys don't have Shudder, I highly recommend looking into it because I think it is so awesome to have a streaming service completely dedicated to horror movies. And not only do they have old horror classics like Halloween, Prom Night, The Fog, but they also have new movies exclusive to Shudder, and some of them are really, really awesome, and some of them not so great. The movie I'm going to talk about today is called The Seed, and it is written and directed by Sam Walker. Now, this movie kind of falls in between a gray area. Some of it I truly, truly loved, and some of it I kind of hated or was confused by, and we're going to dive into the why of that today. Now, if you guys don't want to be spoiled by this movie, then I would suggest not watching it because I am going to talk about spoilers today. But if you don't care or you don't have Shudder and don't plan on getting Shudder and want to know what my thoughts are on this film, then feel free to watch. But spoilers ahead, you've been warned. So the synopsis of this film is pretty simple. It really only stars 3 girls. It really only has 3 characters, all of them women. Their names are Deidre, Charlotte, and Heather. And the premise of this movie is the 3 of them decide to have a girls' weekend in Heather's father's property out in the middle of nowhere, kind of like a desert area. And they're having a girls' weekend, just the 3 of them, trying to get some downtime and kind of kicking it back and cutting it loose and catching up together. And first off, I gotta say, this property is amazing. It's absolutely beautiful. It is kind of like the perfect destination getaway. Now, they go out there specifically to see this really cool once-in-a-lifetime meteor shower. And during that meteor shower, something happens. Something arrives on Earth. And it's kind of why I was inspired to wear my UFO earrings today. During this meteor shower, an animal, I put that in quotes because we'll find out what it is later, it lands right by the property the girls are staying at. And at first they just think it's some kind of sick, wounded animal that needs some help and is dying. And at first they kind of choose to ignore it, but then they make every bad decision in horror movies that you could possibly make, and they decide to try and take care of it. So that is pretty much the basis of the movie. And now we're really going to dive into the spoiler section. So cheers to that. I'm just drinking water today because I got to stay hydrated. But I hope you're tuning in and having something a little more spicy. So let's talk about the good things I liked in this movie. I actually really enjoyed all 3 of the girls. Deidre is kind of the popular chick, and she's a social media influencer, and she's really wanting to go live all the time and talk to her followers and her subscribers and completely live stream the meteor shower. And she's sorely disappointed when she finds out there's really not any self-service out there in this desert area that they're staying at. She's quite beautiful, and she's definitely into makeup and fashion, and she's definitely the more confident one of the bunch. Heather is the one whose father owns the property that they're staying at, and she's a little more kind of high maintenance. She's kind of high strung, but again, also very beautiful and ready to kick back and have fun with her girlfriends, and she just seems really, really nice. Charlotte ends up being kind of the tomboy character. She doesn't really seem to be into makeup. She's not really into fashion, but she happens to still be extremely beautiful, naturally beautiful. I think that's actually mentioned in the movie that they're kind of annoyed with how gorgeous she is without any extra perks we women do, makeup, hair, whatever. But I really liked all 3 of them, and they had really good chemistry, and it definitely felt like they had been friends for a very, very long time. The setting of the movie is quite nice too. It's clear that they're completely isolated. There's hardly any neighbors around or any other people, and it really just focuses on them. You only see like 2, 3 other characters in the entire movie, and they are only there for like split-second scenes. So it really centers on just the 3 of them, and you would think that would be really boring, but it actually works. Now, this animal they find after the meteor shower, it ends up being an alien being. And I'm really into sci-fi movies, not just like horror movies. I really love the sci-fi genre as well. So here's where it kind of gets bad for me. This alien, when you first see it, it's very small, probably about this big, and it reminds me of a skinned teddy bear. I really don't know how else to describe it, but it's very off-putting and ugly and odd. It's not really scary, it's just kind of gross looking. And you're like, okay, maybe this thing is gonna grow. Maybe it's gonna get cooler or creepier or turn into something massive, kind of like a xenomorph in Alien. It starts out real small, like as a face hugger, and then it gets bigger and bigger into the massive alien slash xenomorph that we know and love. But this thing doesn't really get much bigger. I think when it first lands on Earth, it starts out as an egg because it falls into the girl's pool and they end up getting it out with like a pool skimmer. But then it turns into the ugly skinned teddy bear that I was referring to, and it really doesn't get much bigger than that. So this alien has come to Earth and landed in the meteor shower because it basically wants to take over the world and have a bunch of other little aliens show up and basically kill Earth. So I really like the premise of this movie. It's simple. Aliens are there to take over the Earth. But I'm really thrown off by what it looks like. So to have other aliens arrive, not only do more fall on the planet like during this meteor shower, but basically this alien somehow has powers to seduce the women one by one. And it's like really off-putting because they do these really weird kind of trippy scenes where each girl is starting to succumb to whatever powers this alien being has, and they end up having sex with it. But it's very odd on how they have sex with it because, like I said, it's only like this big. And what happens is like this big puddle of goo and blood and substance of some sort kind of comes out of this being, and it's just like this massive, gross puddle looking thing, and it kind of encapsulates the girl. Like she's making love with this puddle of goo, while the alien thing is just like sitting by watching, like, yeah, fuck yeah, while it's being like wrapped up in this nasty goo crap. And that's how they're having sex. It's very odd. So I think the first girl that gets taken by it is Deidre. And then the next girl is Heather. And after each girl has sex with this thing, they feel like they've been rejuvenated, that they have energy of 1,000 humans. Deidre ends up like eating like a ravenous pig and then going and working out for like 5 hours in a row. You see her running really fast in the yard, doing jumping jacks and doing all these other crazy things, and she just seems to have an unlimited amount of energy. She talks about how great she feels, and she's just loving life, and it just seems like she's a whole new person. And she and Heather both were very turned off at the idea of this alien being in their house. And I apologize, I forgot to mention Charlotte, the tomboy, is the one that brought it in because she heard it crying and suffering and she felt bad for it and she felt like she needed to bring it in the house so it could be brought back to life. And she was, keeping it warm in a blanket and feeding it. But they were pissed that she did that because the alien stinks to high heaven and it's nasty. And again, this is Heather's dad's house. She's not thrilled that this thing is now there. Whatever. But after Deidre has sex with it, her tone changes. She's like, oh, keep it. It's fine. It can stay here. It's cool. All right. So you can clearly tell that her personality has changed. Heather is the next person to succumb to the sex monster, if we want to call it that. And she has sex with it. And she's the same way. She gets crazy amounts of energy. She gets really, really hungry, and she just gets really, really happy with life. And she no longer cares that this thing is in her house. In fact, she ends up moving it to one of the guest rooms and putting it in a bed. It's very, very awkward. So Charlotte's now like, okay, what's going on? My friends are acting different. What is up? Well, in the middle of the night, she hears noises and she stumbles upon both her friends in this orgy with this alien. And she's like, what the fuck is happening? And she's just like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. Well, she realizes that something's not right, and she goes to try to get rid of the alien when her friends aren't around. I think they're lounging by the pool. And when she walks into the room, it starts to take her over. And at first she's like imagining really great sex and hooking up with this thing. And she's like starting to think that she should do it. But then once she's like connected to this alien, she realizes their overall plan, that it's going to take over the world, that it's here for bad reasons, and she snaps out of her trance really, really quickly and is like, fuck no, we've got to get rid of this thing. And it's just a nightmare from there on out. When she's trying to talk to her friends about getting rid of it, they're like, no, it's fine. We can stay here forever. I just feel so amazing. Maybe we can get rich and sell this thing because we're the first people to ever discover it. And maybe this is our big break, and, it can be popular on social media and we'll be famous. And she's like, no, I don't give a shit about this. This thing is evil. This thing's got to go. And while they're having like this really big discussion about this creature, all of a sudden, Deidre and Heather start looking like they're pregnant, and they start getting bigger and bigger, and their bellies are growing, and they're like, what is going on? And they're freaking out, and their bodies are transforming. And come to find out, the way that this alien plans to populate the earth, outside of the ones that have also landed, they're impregnating the girls. Like, the sex in less than 48 hours has gotten them pregnant with alien babies. Very similar to, again, Alien, where the face hugger puts in a parasite with its host, and then the parasite ends up popping out of its chest and creating one big alien. It's very, very similar to that. Now, I love Alien. It's done very, very well. It's one of the perfect examples of a good mashup of horror and sci-fi. It's very, very creepy and very, very effective. Now, you would think a movie that is very similar to Alien would also be creepy and effective, but this just isn't. And it's so unfortunate because I think it could be if they had just taken the time to develop some kind of alien creature that was better than this skinned looking teddy bear that had all this goo coming out of him to have sex with these girls. I just feel like I would have enjoyed this movie so much more if they had figured out another way to design the creature. It's so strange because I really like the plot of the movie, but this one little thing ruined it for me and made it just feel so silly and not necessary. So there are a lot of things I do like about it. I really like the characters. I really like the location they're set in. I do like the overall premise of the story, but it just wasn't done to its full potential. Or maybe they really thought that this creature looked cool. I don't know, but it's really laughable and it's really just gross. It's like, why would these girls have sex with this thing? Like, correct, it's got mind-altering powers. It can seduce you. It can put you in a trance, make you do stuff you probably wouldn't normally do, but it just seems so unrealistic. And I think they should have done something to make the creature more, not appealing sexually, but just more realistic. Like, even if they made it grow bigger, the fact that it's like this big and they decided to have this massive goo and body parts, I don't know how to even describe it. But the fact that they went down that route, it just kind of boggles me, because I feel like it would have made this movie so much better if they had just put in a little more money and a little more imagination to the art department, the creature department. Something needed to change there. So at the end of the movie, the two girls that have been impregnated by this thing, they just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they start like foaming blood that's like black at the mouth. Maybe it's not blood, it's some kind of other liquid, but there's just black goo and blood coming out all over them. Their bellies are about to burst. They kind of start to go fucking crazy. But I think they know that these are their babies and they need to populate the earth. And they try to get away from Charlotte. And Charlotte's like, nope, girls, you gotta go. I can't let you escape. Like, I can't let these aliens take over. So she kind of hunts her own friends down and she ends up killing them in very, very violent ways. Whew, it is a trip, let me tell you. So if you guys want to check this movie out, it is streaming on Shudder. Maybe you can find it elsewhere, I'm not sure, but I think it is a Shudder exclusive only. Now, it's unfortunate because I think this movie had a lot of potential, but overall, I would only give it about 2, maybe 2.5 stars if I'm being generous. And if this had been done with a more effective monster/alien, I think I would have given it more like 3 or 3.5 stars. But the monster ruined it for me. It was too hokey and it let me down. So if you guys have seen this movie or end up checking this movie out, let me know what you personally think. Leave a comment below. And I appreciate you guys tuning in today, and I hope to catch you guys here on Wednesday for my continuation of my Scream Collection series, and that you'll tune in again next weekend for another scary movie review. Thanks for tuning in with me today, and I hope you guys are out there keeping it weird and making it Meggy. Peace.